Oh boy, it took finally to get this one going, but here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very final archetype analysis, at least for now, until Yu-Gi-Oh! 7 rolls in or another anime exclusive archetype gets adapted into the real game. And the last archetype we're looking at is the GX era archetype Heroes, used by the main protagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Judah Yuki, and the Season 2 character, a Season 2 and onward character that also appeared as a legacy character in Arc 5, Edo Phoenix. Yeah, Heroes are divided into several sub-archetypes, to be more precise. The elemental heroes, which were used in by Judah Yuki in the anime, Destiny heroes, which were used by Edo Phoenix in GX and Arc 5, Evil heroes, a small bunch of cards, which were used by Judah while he was Hao in the ever so wonderfully badly designed Season 3. And then Neos and Neo-spacians, which is a new addition to the elemental heroes used by Judah from Season 2 and onward. And then we have masked heroes, which are a special kind of heroes that were introduced and are basically the best lineup of hero monsters. Yeah, if anyone asks, every 99%, well, who am I kidding? 100% of players is going to say that masked heroes are the best heroes of the hero archetype. And lastly, we have vision heroes, which are just there, a bit more of a random bunch of cards. And the newest addition to the arsenal, extra heroes, which are just 4 Link monsters from the Link Reigns packs. So yeah. We'll be starting off. Well, yeah, we'll be looking at them like a sub-archetype by sub-archetype. So yeah, we'll be starting off with elemental heroes, and yeah, this isn't going to be your standard archetype analysis. I won't be reading out any of the effects. I'll just be pointing out, you run this much of that, you run none of these. And yeah, point out the rights and wrongs in this archetype, because this is an archetype that consists of 247 cards. If it was a standard archetype analysis, this video would be over 8 hours long. So yeah. As in for the elemental heroes, the vanilla monsters are not worth running, although Elemental Hero Neos is goddamn essential in the Neos variant because, well, it's called Neos, so yeah, basically the only vanilla worth running here is Elemental Hero Neos due to the fact if you're, again, building a Neo-spacian Neos deck in the first place, but other than that, in pure hard-hitting competitive event-topping hero builds, none of the vanillas are worth running. Nor is Elemental Hero Wildheart, which is just a bad card overall. Trap cards are I mean, you can use them to dodge something like Bottomless, but come on, you're really pushing it now. Blade Edge is the textbook definition of an anime boss monster, and it's outdated, and it's heavily outdated in the current game. Bubbleman appeared in one of my top 10 worst archetype support cards video because this is an effect for a goddamn Infernity monster, not an elemental hero, and don't even get me started on Neo Bubbleman. And then we have some of their spell and trap lineup, which are actually limited to a very specific monster. And yeah, most of those monsters are vanilla monsters, such as Bubbleman being the effect monster and having the worst elemental hero effect, has actually 3 support cards segregated to him, and none of them are worth running because they're just pretty terrible. Burst Return is an insult to modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And basically goes against every single logic which modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Stands for. I don't even want to talk about Spark Blaster and how its effects is utterly terrible and god-awful. Feather Shot is... no, I'm just not going to bother with it. Cyclone Boomerang is something that I would consider decent, but again, it's limited to a very specific monster, which is hardly worth running. And yeah, you most likely use this and pop said monster with your own card effects. So yeah, out of all of these, I think the Cyclone Boomerang is the least bad of the bunch, but again, that's really stretching it due to the fact how utterly terrible the monster you require for it is. Clay Charge, I don't know. And then we have Edge Hammer, which is, I mean, if you really think you should run it, you're probably some sort of Edge Lord. Humor. But yeah, then we have a card which would be pretty damn broken, but like Feather Wind here, because it's made to negate any spell or trap card that is activated, but the requirement to do so is that you need to control Elemental Hero Avian specifically, which is a level 3 with 1000 attack and defense, and not exactly something you want to keep on the field for too long. So no. Elemental Recharge is as pointless as you can get, just such as Hero Kit and all of its support cards. And then we go on to the manga lineup of hero cards, starting with Heat, which is, I mean, back in the day it was a tolerable beatstick, but nowadays it's completely irrelevant. Lady Heat is also pretty damn irrelevant, since you don't tend to keep her on the field for this kind of effect, for this kind of slow burn effect for too long, and she's basically outclassed by every single burn archetype, such as Trickstars or Reactors for that matter. So yeah, it's not very good. Elemental Hero Woodsman basically exists for Fusion Recycling Plat to spit in its face and call it a bitch, so yeah, let's move on. Ocean is, well, the errors of this card are vast as the ocean itself, so it's basically, it's too slow to even be considered relevant, so yeah. Necroshade is something that I would have considered a decent one of back in the Middle Ages, but nowadays it's rarely worth considering, because you're sure as hell not running many tribute elemental heroes, and you're sure not as well normal summoning them, so yeah. Ice Edge is one of the most pointless gimmicks I've ever seen on a card, since, well, you can just run MST instead. And Knops, Poison Rose, and the card that you use to summon Poison Rose, because Poison Rose happens to be a Nomi monster for some imbecilic reason, let alone a level 6 one at that, with 1900 attack. Yeah, it's really not worth running. And Voltic is something that actually benefits to a certain spell card that I will mention later in the lineup. But the fact that it needs to inflict battle damage with 1000 attack is something that it's not really good, to be honest. It's way too slow and it's way too weak to perform any significant plays. And then we have Elemental Hero Flash, which is actually pretty alright. I mean, when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish him along with 3 other elemental hero to add a normal spell card from your graveyard. But here's the thing: you'd most likely want to like recycling any normal spell card. Well, recycling any spell card is good, but normal spell cards are, yeah, they're alright. The fact that it can be any normal spell card is very good, but the fact that you need to banish him along with 3 other elemental hero monsters makes him a complete chore to consider using him consistently. You might as well just run Magical Stone Excavation at this point. Now, Elemental Hero Prisma is actually the only anime from the anime lineup of elemental heroes, but I didn't put him alongside of the other cards, because I've put him here because this is the start of the elemental hero lineup, which is actually worth running. Prisma basically is a 3-off staple in any fusion spam-centric build which involves using fusion monsters which specifically list name of other monsters as materials, since not only you get a foolish burial, but you also get to copy the name of the said monster for a turn, making Prisma a very splashable monster since he's basically searchable by an archetypal spell of theirs and reinforcements of the army, which basically is a very it makes him a very versatile monster. He also happens to be a level 4 light monster, which will play into the usefulness when we get to masked heroes soon, and is basically used for the sole purpose of making foolish burials in masked heroes, and then being used as material for masked heroes. And then we have Shadow Mist, which is an absolute 3-off staple as well, because it plays into the gimmick of masked heroes. And yeah, I should have probably looked at this from when talking about masked heroes, but it has elemental hero in its name, so I might as well look at now. So yeah, this is a 3-off staple because masked heroes are the way to build on a hero deck nowadays, and you don't ever want to go without him. Elemental Hero Solid Soldier is a support card for every breed of heroes, so universal support in that regard is really, really good. And yeah, it's alright. It's one of the newer cards, and it's basically a decent staple in the deck. But I wouldn't advise maxing out on it because it eats up your normal summons. So yeah. Next up we have Elemental Hero Blazeman, which is a poly searcher for the archetype, and a pretty good one at that. It's far from a perfect card, but a poly searcher in a heroes in a fusion spam archetype, I meant to say, is one of the most important aspects of a card, and yeah, it's a great card. Liquid Man is another card that basically eats up your normal summon, and it basically is a solid soldier only for graveyard, and it also allows you to, and when it's sent to the graveyard or banished as a material for a fusion summon of a hero fusion monster, you get to draw 2 cards and discard 1, which is also a pretty good, which is a really nice card. And basically the second effect is what Bubble Man should have been if they actually needed to change its anime effect for whatever reason. In fact, anime Bubble Man would have actually been a 3-off staple in the archetype because it's really good. Its original effect, which is much more applicable, is that you can special summon if it's the last card in your hand, and its other effect, if it's the only card you control, you can draw 2 cards when it's summoned. But the real life made it that you need to have no cards on your field and in your hand in order to apply this effect, which barely makes it worth talking about. So yeah, basically you run two Solid Soldier, 2 Liquid Man, and 3 Shadow Mist. So yeah. But oh wait, now we have a true legend. Everyone, please give a round of applause for Elemental Hero Stratos, the one and only. This card is such a hard legend that it actually deserves to have its effects read out in the fullest. So yeah, let's read. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can select and activate one of these effects. Destroy spell or trap cards on the field up to the number of Elemental Hero and Destiny Hero monsters you control, not including this card. And the other effect is select and add 1 Elemental Hero or Destiny Hero monster from your deck to your hand. So yeah, this is a 3-off staple in basically any hero build, and in fact I think he's unlimited to as we speak of. I just gotta check. I hope my recording doesn't break. Yep, it's still recording. But yeah, let me just take a quick look at the ban list. But yeah, this card is such a hard staple in the hero builds, not because of the first effect, because of the secondary search effect, which is a really nice card overall. It basically, yeah, it's no longer on the list. I just checked. It basically showcases the searching power and consistency of the early elemental heroes, and yeah, it's a bit of a how should I say, weird endeavor that it only searches out elemental and destiny heroes and not vision heroes, which are the only other main deck monsters available in the arsenal. of the hero toolbox. So yeah, uh, you basically run 3 of these at all times, and you never think about running any less. So yeah. He's an absolute legend, and he shall always remain one. Alright, moving on. I've wasted enough time here. Now it's time for another crap card, that being Rottweiler, which is... if this card was like made today, then this effect wouldn't actually be as specific like this. It specifically requires elemental heroes and polymerization to be in the graveyard in order to fetch them back, and you can't even add either one of these. If it was like you can add up to 1 elemental hero and up to 1 polymerization, you can basically use this thing in order to recover one of those if you don't have the appropriate setup for it. But not only does it not say that, but this thing needs to specifically be destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard. So this makes it really, really not worth running. Captain Gold is basically the equivalent of Zeradias, the Herald of Heaven, only in Heroes, but he's not worth running due to the fact that the field spell that searches Skyscraper couldn't be more outdated if it thrived. And Skyscraper 2 Hero City is a bit better, but still way too outdated in terms of usage. So yeah, overall in Heroes have a total of 4 field spells, and this was only the half of them. And the other 2 field spells are Destiny Hero field spells, so we'll get to them when we get there. Now time for the fusion monsters. First off, we have the legendary elemental hero Flame Wingman, the Judai's signature monster, just like Yusei's Junk Warrior and Yugi's Dark Magician Girl. Anyway, among the earlier elemental hero fusions, this was actually a pretty awesome card to, well, consider making, since a monster that can actually burn the opponent for a monster's attack, and for the monster's attack that it destroyed, was actually a pretty damn formidable effect, and it definitely warrants this thing being ran in hero decks. The problem, because there has to be a problem, is that it requires 2 vanilla monsters of, well, both of them are not worth running in the slightest, so yeah. Then we have Phoenix Enforcer, which is I'm not sure why they decided to make this into a thing. It also requires Avian and Burstinatrix, and its only effect that it cannot be destroyed by battle. Yeah, if you really have the guts to run these two, you just make Flame Wingman and goodbye. Same can be said about Shining Flare Wingman, which has the exact same effect as Flame Wingman, only it requires him as material and requires also Sparkman as the other material. And it also gains 300 attack for each elemental hero in your graveyard, which can make him a pretty damn solid beatstick, along with the Flame Wingman's original effect. But yeah, you're probably going to be, if you're probably building this deck around this thing, it's probably going to be an OTK deck running stuff like Fusion Tag in order to make something his name into Flame Wingman, so you can use him and I don't know, Prisma as well to summon this thing and then go in for the overkill. Or you can just dump into the graveyard with Gale Dogra or Zaborg. So yeah, you can make him via that, and also using a certain other spell card I'll mention later. Then we have Shining Phoenix Enforcer, which only effect is the first effect of Shining Flare Wingman, and nothing else. He doesn't even retain the effect from Phoenix Enforcer that it can be destroyed by battle. I mean, what the hell were they thinking when they made these? Why do they exist at all? So it's a puzzle, I tell you. Mudball Man's only effect is that it must be fusion summoned again, special summoned by other way, which falls under the category of early GX fusions, which are terrible. And its only usage is being a level 6 3k wall, which requires very specific materials, so you generally don't run this. Then we have Thunder Giant, which is an okay card for a time period, but basically not only is the stuff that you most likely want to get rid of have more attack than this thing, but they're also immune to targeting, so the existence of this is entirely pointless now, so you basically don't run this. Next up we have Mariner, which is one of the weirdest direct attackers in the game, so yeah, really it's really a pointless gimmick, and the only reason why you would consider running is because it can be summoned with instant fusion, but there are much better ways going around summoning using instant fusion. So yeah. Next up we have Necroid Shaman, which is also a pretty funny gimmick, which barely even works. I mean, why the hell would you want to revive an opponent's monster? If you have like a big boss monster that you want to get rid of, then using this not only is probably going to not be possible since the monster cannot be targeted, but if you do manage to destroy it, you're most probably going to have to summon something that will benefit the opponent by triggering its summon effect, which will make the opponent get to search a card, or well, that's pretty much how why this thing is basically useless. Also, it has a 1900 attack, which is beyond laughable for a level 6 fusion monster, so it's really not worth it. Rampart Blaster is a super heavy samurai card, not an elemental hero, and yeah, it's really bad. Then we have Elemental Hero Nova Master, which is actually pretty damn decent. Basically, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to draw a card. Also, it has pretty generic fusion materials, has tolerable attack value for a level 8, although I wish they were a bit higher, but you can also bump it up with some stat boosting cards. So yeah, overall Elemental Hero Nova Master is basically a 1 or 2 off staple. It requires an Elemental Hero monster and a Fire monster, which are not that hard to pull off. There's Prisma and there's Blaze Man, so yeah. And then we have Elemental Hero Inferno, which requires Heat and Lady Heat as material, and its only effect is if it battles a water monster, it gains 1000 attack. It's a level 8 with 2300 attack, which gains a stack when it battles a specific attribute. Like, no, I'm not going to comment any further. This is a terrible card, and we all know it. Then we have Elemental Hero Darkbright, which is also pretty damn outdated and irrelevant, since it focuses on defense position monsters with its effect, and we all know what defense position monsters look like in the Link format. We don't, because we don't ever see them in the Link format, and yeah, it's really not good. And yeah, but yeah, its floating effect is basically this card's only saving grace, and saying it's a saving grace is a bit of a stretch since it targets as well, so no. Next up we have Steam Healer, another very specific fusion monster, and it's about as pointless as it can get, and its only saving grace is again that it can be summoned with instant fusion just like Mariner, and it also happens to be a water monster just like Mariner, so no, I mean, no, just don't run it. Plasma Vice is okay. Yeah, it is also inflicts piercing damage which is outdated in the standards of 2019 Yu-Gi-Oh, but it does actually have an additional effect which can help you out on occasion. Emphasis on occasion, because most monsters are immune to targeting nowadays, so yeah. Then we have Elemental Hero Tempest, which has a pretty interesting protection effect. You can basically send any other card you control to the graveyard to basically protect any monster, and to protect them from being destroyed by battle. I would have actually give this card a lot more credit if it actually protected stuff from effect targeting as well. But not only does it not protect from effect targeting, it requires 3 specific fusion materials which are barely worth running. Hell, they're not worth running at all, so yeah, this thing isn't worth running either. And then we have next next in the lineup we have an elemental hero Wild Edge, which basically is an archetypal Asura priest. Basically, it can attack all monsters once each, which is actually a pretty damn decent effect, and basically the only reason why you would ever want to consider running Wild Heart and Blade Edge. So yeah, if you run you this yeah, just like say you just like I said, if you want an archetypal Asura priest, then you basically run Wild Heart and Blade Edge. So yeah. Wild Wingman is a non-once per turn back row destruction card, which is if I'm glad that it isn't limited to face down or face up cards, because I would this section of the video would be spoken in a completely different tone if it was like that. But the fact that it's a level 8 with 1900 attack is the cherry on top of the uselessness of this card. So yeah. Alright, now moving on to the to some of the manga hero monsters. First of which is the Shining, which requires a hero, elemental hero, and a light monster, and it's basically the manga equivalent to Shining Flare Wingman, and yeah, it basically meant to recycle cards that were used in conjunction with one of their fusion spell cards, which is admirable, but overall not too impressive. So yeah, there are better monsters to consider in this day and age. Gaia is something in between the lines of gimmicky and pointless, because I mean you can make this thing into a relatively high beat stick, but it's only until the end phase, and yeah, you might as well be running Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon because it's much easier to make, and yeah. Great Tornado falls into the same vein because, well, it's basically a different flavor of Gaia. It halves the attack and defense of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls, so it's a bit better than Gaia, but it doesn't gain attack points himself, so yeah. I think Great Tornado is a bit easier to make due to the wind pull of elemental heroes being a bit better than Earth, so yeah. Escuriadio, god, that name is really tongue-trapping. It's a dark counterpart for it's a dark elemental hero requiring dark monsters as material, and it gains 100 attack for each one. Wait, just run for Shining Flare Wingman if you want an effect of this caliber. Then we have Electrum, which I would actually consider worth running if you're relying on Pot of Desires for draw power. But the big and ugly fault of this card is that it requires 4 specific main deck monsters, which are not worth running in the slightest. So it basically is rendered completely useless beyond stuff like, I don't know, stuff like Necroface, or I don't know, something else. Next up we have Elemental Hero Terra Firma, which also falls under the category of the Legendary Planet archetype, and it's fine, but it's another one of those cards that basically requires a bit too much setup in order to be used to the fullest. I believe Shining Flare Wingman has the potential to get more attack value, more powerful attack values than this thing. So yeah, it also has a very specific support card, which is also the textbook definition of pointless. So yeah. Then we have Elemental Hero Core, which is basically an upgrade to Terra Firma, and it requires any 3 Elemental Hero monsters, which is actually pretty complemental to how this deck is supposed to function, and it's alright. Yeah, it's your average beat stick at best, and it basically uh, also has a pretty bad targeting destruction effect, because most stuff nowadays is pretty much immune to targeting. So yeah. Then we have Absolute Zero, which is actually a very nice staple in the deck, because uh, it gains 500 attack for each water monster on the field. Yeah, that effect is about as pointless as it gets. And if this card leaves the field, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So yeah, you can basically use this thing as an extra deck material, or basically, if the opponent gets rid of it by other means, they get a board wipe. Simple and easy. One of the most popular ways to do it is basically summon it pretty darn easy, and then use it as a link material, and then wipe off the opponent's entire board and go in for the overkill. Simple and easy. Grand Merge is a bit of an oddball. It's a really nice card, but its main downside is that it requires hero normal monsters as material, meaning only elemental heroes, since Destiny heroes and Vision heroes or any other ones don't have any normal monsters. So yeah, it's something that I would actually call worth experimenting with. And the last elemental hero monster is Sunriser, and it falls into the same scale of usefulness as Grand Merge, and it's a bit better due to the fact that it requires two hero monsters with different attributes. They don't have to be normal monsters, so yeah. It also searches out the card, which we'll mention just in a minute, which is one of the three off staples in the elemental hero builds. So yeah, also has a nice pop effect when it attacks. So yeah, overall it's a great card and definitely worth running. Then we have Miracle Fusion, which is the card that which Sunriser actually searches out. And it's pretty straightforward. You banish elemental hero monster. You banish fusion materials from the graveyard in order to summon an elemental hero from your extra deck. Simple and easy, and you run 3 of these because elemental heroes really love graveyard setup, and this is a really nice comeback option for the archetype. So yeah, great card, and it actually really plays into the benefit of Parallel World Fusion, which you use to fusion summon by shuffling your banished fusion materials listed on it into your deck. So you basically use Miracle Fusion to summon a monster, and then use this to recover said banished monsters back into the deck and summon another monster, provided you have the right link setup to do so. And yeah, it's a great card, no question about it. However, Miracle Fusion is far more useful, so yeah. Fake Hero, I am not even I mean, you can get free materials out of it, and you can actually bring out Neos a bit easier with this one. But why the hell does it need to return to the hand during the end phase? What's the point of that? I'm not sure, and I don't want to think about it. If you really want to special summon monsters a bit more efficiently, you'll be using a Hero Lives, which is limited nowadays. Because it's a card that if you control no face-up monsters, allows you to pay half your life points to special summon a level 4 or lower elemental hero monster from your deck. So to put it simply, you open up with this and summon Stratos and basically take it from there. In fact, this card is actually the only card you need in a 1-card combo for Horokti, and you basically summon Stratos with this thing and go on from there. So yeah, no wonder it got limited. Next up we have Hero's Bond, which is actually a very decent card, and that's a straight upgrade over Fake Hero. Basically, if you open up with a Hero Lives, then you play this and summon two level 4 or lower elemental hero monsters from your hand. So you basically get to summon stuff like Blaze Man or Shadow Mist even. You get to search a poly, and you still have a normal summon remaining. It's a really good card, no question about it. Alright, now going on to some of to a bit of a gimmicky side of heroes. We have the 4 cards known as H Heated Heart, which actually can be applied to any monster, and it basically lets him have a 500 attack point boots and allows him to inflict piercing damage, which is a not too impressive card. And then E Emergency Call, which you run 3, and that's all I'm going to say and rest my case. R Righteous Justice, which is the worst of the 4 cards, because literally Stratos' first effect, which Stratos himself can perform a bit better than this thing. And in fact, the effect is mandatory, so if your opponent has less cards than your elemental heroes, you're forced to destroy your own cards. So yeah, there's that. And Oversoul is basically a 3-off staple in Neos variants, because you use it to revive Neos, and its the only main fault is that it's limited to normal monsters. If it was limited to any elemental hero, I would have called it a much better card, and it would see much more play than it does right now. And Hero Flash is one of the most specific activation condition cards in history, because it requires you to have all 4 of these previously mentioned cards in your graveyard and banish them, and all you get is an elemental hero normal monster from your deck, and all the elemental hero normal monsters you control can attack your opponent directly. I mean, you can use it to summon Neos and make him a 2500 attack direct attacker, but this card basically requires an entire deck being built around it, so it's really, really not worth it. And basically the best way to activate it is via a certain Destiny Hero card, which we'll get into just a moment. So yeah. Then we have Fifth Hope, which is basically an archetypal Pot of Avarice, but it's actually better than Pot of Avarice, since if you activated it and it was the only card in your hand, instead of 2 cards, you get to draw 3 cards. So yeah, it's a great card, and it's a 2 or 3-off staple in the archetype. And then we have Hero Mask, which basically functions as some of your fusion substitute cards, such as Prisma. It's basically a spell card version of Prisma, and that's about all it does. And you'd most likely want to have Prisma on the field, and his effect active. So it's really not worth it. Hero Heart is another gimmicky multiple attacking card, which is, yeah, if you use it on a high attack beat stick, you can basically get some massive damage output on board, but really it's mostly not worth it. And then we have Skydive Scorcher, the last spell card in the Elemental Hero lineup of cards, and it basically is training wheels for Flame Wingman to be a bit better than he usually is. Basically play this and then go in for the attack on the final monster, which Flame Wingman or Shining Flare Wingman can get over quite easily, and then burn for game. And yeah, it also requires Skyscraper in order to work more efficiently, which highly dampens its usage. So yeah, if you really, really love Skyscraper for whatever reason, even though the only field spell worth running in the hero builds is Fusion Recycling Plant and nothing less, and yeah, you can have some fun with this thing, but overall I would not recommend it. Hero Signal is a trap which allows you to summon a level 4 or lower elemental hero monster when a monster you control is destroyed by battle. And yeah, in slower formats it really served its purpose, and it basically is kind of irrelevant and outdated, since you're most likely going to be using it when your fusion monsters get destroyed by battle, since those are the ones that most likely tend to partake in battle the most. Although those monsters are probably going to be taken care of by non-battling means. So yeah. Then we have Hero Blast, which is something I would actually consider okay, but if it wasn't limited to normal monsters, again, for some imbecilic reason. Mirror Gate is gimmicky into the fullest. You just better run Honest or something like that, or basically any basically any other battle trap instead of this. So yeah, hero barrier is just a very bad specific battle trap. Again, any freaking battle trap is outclassed, but it's outclassed by any single battle trap. Hero counterattack is basically a worse version of a certain other card we'll mention as well. Change of hero reflector ray is also pretty damn pointless, and hero spirit is also a bit on the stale side in terms of its usage, because it's limited to elemental hero fusion monsters, which are plentiful, but you're most likely going to be using masked heroes most of the time during the battle phase. So yeah, and lastly we have a rank 6 Xyz monster, elemental hero pit boss. Oh, sorry, E-hero pit boss, which is actually an illegal match winner card, but I'm putting it last here because it requires 3 level 6 monsters and has basically no relation to the archetype whatsoever, due to the fact that it's also a spellcaster. So yeah, it's really bad in terms of its correlation with the rest of the archetype. Okay, time for evil heroes. We thankfully don't have to stick around for too much longer because, well, we only have 16 cards here to look at. First of which is Evil Hero Infernal Prodigy, and the only thing this thing is useful is being a rank 2 enabler. Yeah, if you control no monsters, you can special summoning me. Yeah, you can be a free link material, but that's about all it does, since its other effect is very rarely going to be used, and not to mention that the draw 1 plus happens during the end phase, as of not immediately after this thing is tributed, just like it is in the anime. So yeah, in my opinion, not worth it. Then we have Infernal Gainer, which you can banish during your main phase 1, and to make a fiend monster you control to be able to attack the twice during each battle phase. And during your second standby phase you can basically bring this thing back, which is, yeah, this thing is ran in fiend based OTK decks, which can make their monsters hit even harder. There are decent targets for this, mind you, but relying on having a specific level 4 monster which needs to tribute itself in order to activate said effect is not very versatile in my opinion, so yeah. Next up we have the dark counterpart to Captain Gold, that being Evil Hero Adusted Gold. And it's a bit better since it actually searches out a whole lot of support cards related to evil heroes, not just their field spell. It searches out Dark Fusion, which is the fusion card which the evil heroes require in order to summon their extra deck monsters. Or a card that lists Dark Fusion in its text, meaning it can search out their field spell, or an alternative fusion card which has special summons monsters, which has the effect that when you use that card to fusion summon, it is treated as being summoned with Dark Fusion. So because Evil Hero fusion monsters have the clause that says must be special summoned with Dark Fusion and cannot be special summoned by other ways. So yeah, and and this thing also cannot attack unless you control a fusion monster, which is funny, since yeah, this thing probably isn't going to remain on the field at all. So yeah, and we have Sinister Necrom, which is the dark counterpart to Necroshade. I never thought I'd see that, but okay. And it's pretty good. It's a prime foolish burial target, and it's yeah, it's a really good card. I would have actually loved it a lot more if it wasn't a level 5 monster. But hey, and at least you can make a decent use out of it, I guess. And the last monster in the Evil Hero lineup is Evil Hero Malicious Edge, which you can tribute summon with 1 tribute if your opponent controls a monster. And it can inflict piercing damage because this was 2007, and it's pretty much outdated since, yeah, this used to be a legit popular tribute monster to get out in the early days of hero decks, but nowadays there are way better options to go about that, and you're not tribute summoning in the slightest. So yeah. Now Dark Fusion, here is their card which we mentioned before, is the fusion spell that is needed for evil heroes to function. Basically, it's a by the numbers fusion card which can basically summon a fiend type fusion monster where by sending monsters that are listed on as materials to the graveyard, and the special summon monster cannot be targeted by the opponent's spell traps or card effects this turn. So yeah, it offers a nice little protection in terms of what resources you need to summon it. And then we have Dark Calling, which is basically the graveyard version for Dark Fusion. Since, yeah, it works the exact same way, only it basically you need to banish stuff from your hand or graveyard in order to bring stuff out to the field. And now we go on to their extra deck monsters which you can summon with these cards. First of which is Evil Hero Inferno Wing, which has the exact requirements as it's basically the Evil Hero counterpart to Flame Wingman, and must be special summoned with Dark Fusion and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This is what I said earlier. And it can inflict piercing damage, and when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it has the exact same effect there as Flame Wingman. So basically, it's a little bit of an upgrade over Flame Wingman at the cost of using a specific fusion spell in order to summon it. But I would still actually prefer the original Flame Wingman, because building decks around the Shining Flare Wingman, which, by the way, evil heroes you don't even have access to, is much easier than using this thing. So yeah, sure, you can inflict piercing damage, but come on, who's going to summon other defense position monsters in this day and age in the Link era? So yeah, the original Flame Wingman is a bit better, so since he's a bit easier to bring out than this thing, and he can maybe used as material for a Shining Flare Wingman if you're playing the Shining Flare OTK. So yeah, then we have Lightning Golem, which is the dark counterpart to Thunder Giant, and it's the exact same shit as Thunder Giant, only you don't have to discard a card in order to destroy a monster, and it doesn't have, and the attack of the monster doesn't have to be lower than the original attack of the monster doesn't have to be lower than the attack of this thing. So yeah, better than Thunder Giant for sure, but it's a bit trickier to summon. So yeah, they're about as equally as unimpressive, to say the least. Then we have Infernal Sniper, which is the dark counterpart to Rampart Blaster, and its only other effect is it has the exact same effects and summoning conditions as Rampart Blaster, except it has the immunity that it cannot be destroyed by spell cards for whatever reason. This was most probably done because this card appeared in the duel between O'Brien and Hollow, and O'Brien was like using Blaze Accelerator cards, and those are count as being destroyed by spell cards, so they made this thing unable to be destroyed by spell cards for that sole purpose. So yeah, random gimmick. What else can I tell you? Wild Cyclone is the dark counterpart to Wild Wingman, and you basically don't run it because it's the Stealthroid type of back row removal, since he has to yeah, it has Armade's shutdown when battling, but and if it inflicts battle damage, you can destroy all face down spell or trap cards, which is alright, but the fact that this thing needs to battle first, it renders it way too specific in order to consider even consider it. Yeah, the Armade's shutdown does help, but it's very abysmal 1900 attack, and the fact that the opponents usually have other monsters whose effects are much better than all the battle traps this thing stops, renders this thing pretty obsolete, in my opinion. Then we have Evil Hero Dark Gaia, which is a pretty famous monster in the circles of Yu-Gi-Oh players. It requires a Fiend type monster and a Rock type monster, which in the Hero archetype doesn't have except one monster in the Neos branch, which we'll get into soon. And it has the effect that it gains the attack equal to the combined original attack of all the fusion monsters used to fusion summon it. And when it declares an attack, you can change all defense position monsters your opponent controls to face-up attack position, and flip effects are not activated. The last part of the effect does not matter in the slightest, since there's defense position monsters are practically non-existent. And yeah, this was basically the prime star in its so-called Dark Gaia turbo build, where you used Valkyrion the Magna Warrior, which is the highest attack main deck rock monster in the entire game. I'm not sure what about the what the Fiend one was, what the Fiend type monster with the highest attack was, but yeah, you get the point. You basically fuse that Fiend monster along with the Valkyrion the Magna Warrior in order to get this thing over 7,000 attack or above, and then attack for game. Sure, it's a beatdown type and a bit of a outdated beatdown type focused play, but yeah, this thing does not have anything else, so you basically are required to protect it by other means, so good luck with that. Then we have Evil Hero Malicious Fiend, which requires specifically Evil Hero Malicious Edge and a level 6 or higher Fiend type monster as its material. And it's actually one of the better Evil Heroes, as in during your opponent's battle phase it must be attacked by it switches all your opponent's monsters to attack position, and each monster they control must attack it if able. And with the attack of 3500, it's a pretty damn decent effect. Really good. However, again, you're rarely going to see defense position monsters, so the first effect is kind of obsolete as well. But yeah, it's a pretty nice attack baity card and definitely worth running. And this is probably this is the only reason basically why you run Malicious Edge. So yeah. And the last monster in the Evil Hero lineup is Malicious Bane. Requires an Evil Hero monster and a level 5 or higher monster, any level 5 or higher monster, and it's pretty pretty good. It's the be-all, end-all boss monster of Evil Heroes, and basically your secondary or primary, whichever you prefer, option over Malicious Fiend. It basically hits hard. It hits super hard. It can destroy all monster your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to this card. So, and not to mention that it gains attack, so the effect can be used on even more monsters after that. So yeah, it's a great card, and you should always consider running it. And lastly, we have two other spell cards for the Evil Heroes. First of which is Supreme King's Castle, which is a field spell which enables you to summon fusion monsters, the Evil Heroes, that can be summoned with Dark Fusion with effects other than Dark Fusion. This solely exists to solidify the fact how I was using super polymerization in order to summon some of the monsters, even though it clearly states in the monsters' effects that they can be only special summoned with Dark Fusion and cannot be special summoned by other ways. So in the real game, without the existence of this, imitating How in that regard is impossible. So yeah. As for its other effect, it's fine. It allows for some extra deck graveyard setup and some main deck graveyard setup, and it allows you to quickly dump Sinister Necrom to the graveyard to be a bit more productive. So yeah, great card overall. And lastly, we have Evil Mind, which allows you, if you control a Fiend type monster, it allows you to it basically gives you effects based on the number of monsters in your opponent's graveyard. If you control a Fiend monster, if he has one or more, you can draw one card. If it has 4 or more, you can add a hero monster or Dark Fusion from your deck to your hand, and 10 or more, you can add a polymerization spell or a fusion spell from your deck to your hand. So yeah, this is basically a 3-off staple in evil heroes and basically makes them splashable. I should say more splashable in the regular heroes than they initially were. So yeah, it's a good card overall. And with that, we are done with evil heroes. Next on the lineup, we have the Destiny heroes, the ones that were used by Edo Phoenix. So yeah, let's start. This was a very flimsy archetype during its inception, but came Mark V support, and it suddenly turned into a okay archetype. First of all, we have Dark Angel, which is a field commander Ras for any spell card in your deck, since it allows you to banish it from the graveyard to allow both players to place any spell card to the top of their deck. It's a bit too slow, but if you have resources to draw a card immediately after this effect was activated, it basically becomes a +1 in that regard. So yeah, it has a bit of a how should I say, a negative effect if you happen to give it to your opponent. Well, it also works on you, so watch out. But anyway, that negative effect is supposed to be like when you give it to your opponent, so they can't use their decks and other effects properly. Well, only spell cards for that matter. But yeah, you get the point. It's a bit of a gimmicky choice, but feel free to experiment with it. Then we have Destiny Hero Dreamer, which is basically a direct attack interceptor. Well, not basically a direct attack interceptor, but a graveyard focused attack interceptor. That's what I want. That's what I wanted to say. Basically, if it's in your graveyard and your Destiny Hero battles during damage calculation, you can special summon it in order for him to take no battle damage, and he basically gets banished when it leaves the field. Nothing too special, nothing too broken, but yeah, it serves its purpose for what it's supposed to do, so yeah. Then we have the former resident of the ban list, that being Destiny Hero Disc Commander, whose old effect was when it was special summoned from the graveyard, you get to draw 2 cards. So yeah, it was pretty obvious why this thing was banned for as long as it was, because getting a plus off being special summoned from the graveyard is such a pure advantage generator that it had to be dealt with. And it got an errata to make its new effect, to make it a lot slower and a lot more unplayable. Basically, you cannot special summon it from the graveyard the turn it was sent there, and it has its old effect remained intact, and it got a once per duel limitation. So yeah, it's still an okay card, but it got too nerfed to make it consider running it at 3. Then we have D Cubed, which is the Destiny Hero counterpart to Rottweiler, and it happens to be a lot better than Rottweiler. First of all, upon it being summoned by any means, and I think if it is normal summoned, it is treated as a Destiny hero, so there's some incentive for some of their fusion cards to use this as a material, and you can discard up to 2 the Destiny Hero cards in order to special summon 2 copies of this thing, making it a very spam-focused link material at that. Also happens to be a level 1 dark level machine with 0 attack and defense, so you can also use Machine Dupe if you don't have enough resources to spare. But running Machine Dupe in Destiny Heroes is a bit of a gamble, since most of them are warrior type monsters. Also, if it is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can perform a Foolish Burial on a Destiny Hero monster, which is always a plus in my book, since the archetype does have some decent targets to dump to the graveyard. So yeah, not one of those targets is Destiny Hero Departed, which during your standby phase allows you to basically, if it is in the graveyard, to special summon it to your opponent's side of the field, and that's about all it does, since all other cards are, if it is sent to the graveyard like that or that or that, you can banish it instead. So basically, it's a very gimmicky kind of, I don't know what it actually was. It's basically meant to give it to your opponent in order to run into it, because the opponent has something you can't run over. But yeah, that's kind of the sad story about Destiny Heroes, and that's kind of why this thing exists. Destiny Heroes for the longest time were an archetype of monsters whose attack barely reached above 1000, so this kind of effect was perfectly understandable, but the way it was actually implemented meant that it was never going to be used ever, ever and ever. However, this thing is actually a star in the show when it involves actually an infinite loop involving Slifer the Sky Dragon, since if you have this thing in your graveyard and Slifer the Sky Dragon on your field and activate this thing's effect, Slifer's second effect will activate, making this thing's attack be decreased by 2000, and since he doesn't have 2000 or above attack points, it will go to the graveyard again, and you'll be able to activate this thing again since it's still the standby phase, and then ladder rinse repeat until the opponent surrenders because of he was destroyed by pure boredom. So yeah, that's the only relevance this thing ever had. Destiny Hero Captain Tenacious was one of the slowest revival cards I have ever seen, and it only works on monsters which were destroyed by battle. And yeah, and then we have Blade Master, which I would actually call alright if it wasn't for the clause that it only works during your opponent's battle phase for whatever reason, making it extremely bricky to consider running. Doomlord is a better junk archer, and that's as far as it goes, and basically you can get rid of any opponent's problematic monster with Doomlord at the cost of him not taking any damage this turn. And if you happen to need such an effect, you're better off just making Evil Storm Excite on Knight, and then you're still actually able to do some damage, because Excite on Knight with his effect doesn't negate all damage for that turn. It just halves all damage for that turn, so it's a bit better than that. Then we have Dunker, which is one support card away from being a cannon soldier. Be a cannon soldier for the hand. So yeah, it only works on Destiny Heroes, of course. So yeah, as it is right now, it's pretty much useless. But if we get like one card which can properly recycle cards from the graveyard, then we can pretty much see this on the limited list for being a cannon soldier for the hand. So yeah. And then we have Destiny Hero Fearmonger, which also falls under the category of Captain Tenacious's too slow of a revival card, so not gonna bother with this one any further. Then we have the legendary Destiny Hero Defender, and I say legendary because this is one of those old cards which was back in the very, very early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Super hard to get rid of, because it was a level 4 monster with 2700 defense, sorry. Which for a level 4 monster is actually a very high defense value. However, it's actually the second highest defense value of level 4 monsters. The level 4 monster with the highest defense value is Super Crash Bug with 3000 defense, which are reviewed on the archetype analysis about Crash Bugs. And basically, during each of your opponent's standby phase, your opponent draws one card. It's basically a negative effect in order to bribe the opponent for not destroying this thing. Well, that bribe is not necessary, since this thing has way over the average defense value for a level 4. So yeah, if you're playing some sort of a stall build and need easily accessible walls, Destiny Hero Defender is basically there a 3-off staple. So yeah. Then we have Destiny Hero Diamond Dude, which has a very interesting effect. It basically allows you to look at the top of your deck. Then if it was a spell card, you can send it to the graveyard, and during your next turn you can activate that card. However, the activation conditions of said card do not have to be met. So yeah, you can basically cheat out some spell cards which have very, very specific costs to them. I'm not sure if you could actually cheat out the Infernal Tempest like that. I'm not sure, but if you can, it can be really broken, since for Infernal Tempest you need to take 3000 or more battle damage in order to activate it. So yeah, it's it has a few niche uses and basically has variants called Diamond Dude Turbo, which revolves around a lot of spell cards, and they're usually draw power spell cards or something like that can recycle other stuff from the graveyard. So yeah, you basically use this to activate hard to pull off spell cards, or basically, if you're lucky, any spell card that you can come across from the top of your deck. And yeah, if you don't happen to activate a spell card, the card is, I think, it goes to the bottom of the deck. So yeah, it goes on the bottom of the deck. I didn't read the effect of the card to the fullest. So yeah, and then we have Destiny Hero Celestial, whose first effect is very pointless, since the most is going to destroy field spells, and yeah, it burns for 500 damage because this was GX and gimmicks were all over the place. And however, its second effect is a bit more useful. It's a lot more useful than Bubble Man. So yeah, this is supposed to be like the counterpart to Bubble Man in a way, in how its second effect works. Basically, if you have no cards in your hand, you can banish this thing along with another Destiny Hero in order to draw 2 cards. So yeah, pretty nice draw effect, and it's usually the reason why this thing is ran at 3 in Destiny Hero builds. So yeah. And we have Destiny Hero Draw Hand, which is one of their newer support cards, and it gains its effects if it is special summoned by the effect of a hero monster, meaning you can use other stuff like a hero. You can use some elemental hero support cards, or basically any hero cards, many hero cards, like it says. You can make each player draw 1 card, which is fine. Basically an archetypal 1 Day of Peace, and yeah, it has a alright revival effect for the next turn, since if you happen to use him as a link material. So yeah, pretty cool card in my opinion. And then we have Destiny Hero Decider with some of the most interesting effects I've seen on an archetypal support card. First of which, he cannot be targeted for attacks by level 6 or higher monsters. And it has 2 additional effects which can only be each used once per duel. First of which is, when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you can basically return this card from the graveyard to the hand in order to make that damage 0. And that is of course a quick effect. And its first effect is, if it is normal or special summon, you can add a hero monster from your graveyard to your hand during the end phase. Okay, the first effect, while it is very slow and situational, it does benefit towards the archetype, even though it happens during the end phase, not immediately. However, the second effect is just really funny to me. I mean, if you're playing against Trickstars and happen to have this thing in your graveyard, you can not only recycle this card, but you can also negate that effect damage. So yeah, it's a bit of a funny card, but it does its job occasionally well. And then we have Destiny Hero Drill Dark, which basically is an archetypal Satellar Knight Vega, as in it allows you to special summon another Destiny Hero monster from your hand with attack less than or equal to this card's attack on the field. And it also can inflict piercing damage. Yeah, that doesn't matter in the slightest, since this thing is probably going to be used as material for other summon effects. It's rarely going to attack, and it's a shame that you cannot chain this card just like Daybreaker can. So yeah, you can like special summon 3 Drill Darks and I don't know, a Decider or whatever. So yeah, it's a really nice card for swarming and for using it as material. And the last one of the last lower level main deck monsters is Destiny Hero Dread Servant. So yeah, this card is basically intended to work with the Clock Tower Prison's field spell. It basically places a counter on Clock Tower Prison on each one. So yeah, it indicates that you can basically get into a Destiny Hero mirror match, which is highly unlikely. And when it's destroyed by battle, you can basically destroy 1 spell or trap you control. Basically, it allows you to pop Clock Tower Prison. And then we have Internal Dread, which is a trap card which allows you to place 2 more counters on the said Clock Tower Prison. But what does it actually do? Well, once per during your opponent's standby phase, you can place a clock counter on this card. And while there are 4 more clock counters on this card, you do not take any battle damage, which is pretty damn good effect in my opinion. And if you happen to destroy it with 4 more clock counters, you can special summon a Destiny Hero Dreadmaster from your hand or deck. And Dreadmaster is a level 8 monster with undetermined attack and defense. And if it is special summoned by Clock Tower Prison, you can destroy all other monsters you control except Destiny Hero monsters. I don't know why this effect exists, but okay. You basically summon this while you have no other monsters on the field other than Destiny Heroes. And its other effect is, after that you can actually special summon 2 Destiny Hero monsters from your graveyard, and this thing gains attack equal to the attack and defense of all other Destiny Hero monsters on the field. So yeah, it's a really nice card. Also, it has nice protection for your Destiny Hero monsters. So yeah. It's also a target for Allure of Darkness, trade in one of their own archetypal draw cards, so yeah, it's a good card overall. Then we have Destiny Hero Dynatag, which is our first level 5 monster. And during damage calculation, it's basically a hand trap which allows you to take no battle damage and then inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. And it also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it and a Destiny Hero monster you control gains 1000 attack until the end of the opponent's turn, which is a very valuable effect, and it basically makes this thing 3-off staple, since Destiny Heroes main deck monsters especially have very low stats for their levels, and it basically helps, and any bit helps, as some would say. Then we have Destiny Hero Double Dude, a level 6 with 1000 attack, who can attack twice during each battle phase. And if it is destroyed if it was destroyed since your last standby phase, it basically gives you 2 tokens, which is fine. But I would have appreciated if it was an archetypal Dandelion, where it gave you the tokens instantly upon its destruction. But nope. And we have Destiny Hero Malicious, which you always max out on, because this thing is basically the reason why the semi-limited list exists. And yeah. This card is just pure advantage and a prime foolish burial target, and you should never ever think about running any less than 3 of these, or 2 if it happens to be semi-limited at this moment, which I'm not sure of. Dasher is, well, dashing towards being a alright monster. You can tribute another monster in order to make this thing a 3100 attack beatstick, which can only be summoned with 1 tribute, which is alright. So essentially it's a 2 tribute monster then, so what did I just say? And while it's in the graveyard, if you draw a monster card during your draw phase, you can basically special summon it instantly. It's basically a different flavor of Necroshade, and it's basically a counterpart to Necroshade in this deck. So yeah. And the last 2 main deck monster of the Destiny Heroes, we have Destiny Hero Dogma and Destiny Hero Plasma, which are the 2 monsters that hero decks are usually the decks are built around. Destiny Hero Plasma was a legit popular card with stuff like Grinder Golem, or basically Lava Golem, or basically any single monster which can appear on your opponent's side of the field to get rid of some of their own stuff. And basically, yeah, you most likely are going to be summoning Grinder Golem when this thing, or not, since it's banned. You basically, since it requires 3 monsters for its special summon, you tended to summon something with Grinder Golem, will special summon the Grinder Golem tokens, and then special summon some other 3rd monster in order to summon this thing and absorb that Grinder Golem in order to beat the opponent very hard. And Dogma was also a very nice card to consider building a deck around, since it's basically an instant halving of your opponent's life points, along with being the biggest main deck beatstick of the archetype, which can become an even bigger beatstick with with Dynatag or anything other that can boost attack values. So yeah, and if you happen to have them together with a Poly in your hand, you can make their first fusion monster, that being Destiny and Dragoon, which is the only fusion monster that Edo ever used in the in GX. So yeah. And also clarifications to all of you filthy dub watchers out there. Most of you don't know that this thing even exists in the anime, since this is a season 4 exclusive card. So yeah, it's an alright card. Some of it actually consider it to be a bit better than some of their newer support cards, which I find a bit puzzling, but still, this is a boss monster which still holds up pretty decently today. If you, it makes Plasma and Dogma searchable by Fusion Conscription as well, so you should definitely go wild when aiming to play this. Then we have the Arc 5 era support, the first of which is Destiny Hero Dystopia, which requires 2 Destiny Hero monsters, and it's some of the fans were pretty much disappointed, since it's been this much time since Destiny and Dragoon came to the town, and then this is all they could have come up with. But I actually find it pretty alright, since you can actually build decks around this thing with stuff like using Steam Peak in order to trigger its pop effect every turn, and along with resetting its life points every single time. Well, attack points, not life points. So yeah, it's a perfectly fine boss monster and a decent first turn option if you haven't got the materials for some of their bigger fusions, which we'll get into later. And if you happen to really love this thing, then you're probably going to love Destiny Hero Dusktopia as well, which requires a Destiny Hero fusion monster and a Destiny Hero monster's material. And it basically is a protection version of Dystopia. If it is fusion summoned, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using a monster from your hand or field as material. So basically it allows you to give a free fusion without the use of polymerization or a fusion card. And you can basically target a monster on the field to make it unable to be destroyed by battle or card effects. And if you do, neither player takes any battle damage from attacks involving monsters. So yeah, it's a decent protection. It can certainly save you from a lot of nasty effects, so it's definitely worth running. And then we have the last 2 monsters, first of which is Destiny Hero Dangerous, which is the lowest level fusion monster, which requires a Destiny Hero and a Dark Effect monster. And it's a pretty alright card, since it actually allows you to set your plays for you can dump malicious to the graveyard, and you can also basically dump anything to the graveyard that you might actually find useful there for that turn. You can also dump Disc Commander, but the Pre-Errata Disc Commander in order to revive it with something. But yeah, it's also a cool first turn option if you don't prefer to run Dystopia. So yeah, it's their weakest monster in terms of hitting hard, but it certainly makes up in play extension and setup for that matter. And lastly, we have Destiny Hero Dominance, the last Destiny Hero monster. Requires 3 Destiny Hero monsters as material, and it's basically can benefit from by Diamond Dude's effect, since it allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck or your opponent's deck, then place them on the top or the bottom of the deck in any order. And when it destroys a monster by battle, you can draw 1 card, so it's basically a Nova Master for the archetype. And if this fusion summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a level 3. You can target 3 level 9 or lower Destiny Hero monsters with different names in your graveyard and special summon them. So yeah, not only is the boss monster which hits super hard, it also revives 3 level 9 or lower monsters, which is actually one of the largest level pools for these type of effects which are applied on boss monsters. And it also allows you to set up the destiny drawing of your deck, and yeah, it's a really nice card and you should always consider running it. Now for their support cards. The last field spell is Dark City, which is the exact same shit as Skyscraper, only for Destiny heroes, but here it's actually much more appreciated due to the fact that Destiny heroes have very terrible stats. Well, mainly their main deck monsters do, but still, it's really not worth running. Next up we have the Spirit, which allows you to special summon a level 4 or lower Destiny hero monster from your hand. Will you control all monsters? So, yeah, this is something you usually start your plays off with. Usually this or a hero lives, so yeah. Then we have Cyclone Blade, which you can only equip to a Destiny hero monster. And it's basically the a worse wild Cyclone, so not worth running. Destiny Draw is an absolute 3-off staple. Then we have Deformation, which is useful in a very, very specific situation, which again makes it barely worth considering, since it also relies on counters. So yeah, Over Destiny is okay revival card, but it can be a bit too but it can require a bit too much setup sometimes, so watch out with the ratios. And lastly we have Fusion Destiny, which is their archetypal fusion card. So yeah, it's however, it's a bummer that you destroy the monster during the end phase of the next turn, and yeah, you basically aim to summon the Destiny End Dragoon with this thing, because Destiny End Dragoon has a revival effect from the graveyard, unlike all the other fusion monsters. So yeah, and speaking of fusion, we're not quite done. We have one more fusion card, which is Defusion, which is a trap card, Fusion Trap. I know. You can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck by using monsters you control as fusion materials, but it cannot be destroyed by battle card effects. And you can only use Destiny heroes for fusion materials, of course. So yeah, basically a fusion card with a slight hint of protection, and you must only use Destiny hero monsters. So yeah, run by preference in my opinion. D-Shield also goes against the logic of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Since it switches to defense mode, but only works on Destiny heroes which don't have link monsters, so I guess it's alright, and also gives battle protection because, alright. D-Counter is actually pretty alright since it does not target the attacking monster. D-Fortune is an alright attack interceptor. Destiny Mirage is actually a card which was made after the Elemental Mirage, which funnily enough is not printed. Basically, when a Destiny hero monster you control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, special summon to your field all Destiny hero monsters that were destroyed and sent to either graveyard this turn. It basically revives all your Destiny hero monsters that were destroyed this turn. However, Elemental Mirage revives all monsters that were destroyed this turn if an Elemental hero monster is destroyed. So yeah, Elemental Mirage is a bit more powerful in that regard, so that's kind of understandable why they printed it. Why they printed Destiny Mirage instead of Elemental Mirage. D-Chain is Pack Filler Incarnate. D-Tactics is one of their newer support cards, and it's alright. It gives a minuscule attack point boost, but seriously, every bit helps here, since Destiny heroes usually have very, very poor stat lines for their levels. And yeah, and its second effect and its third effect are also alright, since one of them is a search effect. So yeah, watch out for the ratios. I wouldn't run 3 of them, but it's certainly a staple in the deck. Then we have Destiny Signal, which is the exact same thing as Hero Signal, only for Destiny heroes. And D-Time is a support card that I actually put on the dirtiest card names list for a very good reason, because it's time for some Ds to take place. Anyway, yeah, it's a support card for Destiny heroes, which requires Elemental heroes to be present, which, okay, is not the worst thing ever, but it's certainly a lot more specific than all the other cards. So yeah, and with that, we are done with the Destiny Hero lineup. Alright, the next lineup of card we have Neo-spacians. Yeah, and these are the this is an archetype consisting of 56 cards, not including Neos, which we've already looked at during the original Elemental Hero run. And yeah, these basically focus around 6 monsters of all the main attributes of the game, which Neos fuses with in order to make their specific fusion monsters and get their effects off. Anyway, yeah, we have Aqua Dolphin, which was back in the day considered a very bad joke card, and yeah, but funnily enough, nowadays he is the Neo-spacian that is mostly ran nowadays in other decks, and I cannot for the love of my life figure out why. Really, I can't. Flare Scarab is a gimmick of its own. Air Hummingbird might as well be a vanilla monster, considering what its corresponding fusion monster does. Grand Mole is a notorious Neo-spacian, as he was limited for a very long time since his effect was very powerful back in the day, but now he's outclassed by Gamma in that regard. And Neo-spacian Glow Moss is, again, cool artwork wasted on a pointless gimmick. I still think Flare Scarab is a is a better card than him. So yeah, and Dark Panther, while he may have some uses, it's mostly irrelevant. So yeah, it's usually goes like you copy something that can remove something from the field or generate advantage for you in terms of searching stuff out or disrupting graveyard setups. So yeah, very narrow, very limited usage, but yeah, here we are, I guess. Neo-spacians also have their corresponding Chrysalis monsters, which they can be attributed when Neospace is out on the field in order to special summon their corresponding Neo-spacian from your hand or deck. And they also have some of the most crappiest support cards in order to support them. And then we have the Elemental Hero Neos Alias, which I actually should have looked during the original Elemental Heroes. Basically, Neos Alias is a Gemini monster, which has the effect that it is treated as the Elemental Hero Neos, the original one, while on the field. Which some of you might think that this is an easier to summon Neos, but in fact it's not, since it's again a Gemini monster which eats up your normal summon. And yeah, if you can actually manage to special summon this with something like, I don't know, Summoner Monk or anything other than that, then summon it again in order to have its name be treated as the original Neos, then I guess it can be useful. Then we have the support card known as Nex, which is the support card that basically is like a prototype mask change in Neo's build. We'll get to what mask change does when we get to Mask Heroes, but yeah, it basically supports only two of the Neo-spacians displayed on the picture here, those being Aqua Dolphin and Glow Moss. And basically it summons an upgraded form of said Neo-spacians from the extra deck, and actually Aqua Dolphin, I should say Marine Dolphin, also has a corresponding Neos fusion monster which uses him and Elemental Hero Neos. But first of all, let's cover the original Aqua Neos, which is basically a hand destruction card, that being, and once per turn that you can discard any card and destroy a random card in your opponent's hand. So basically an even 0 in that regard. And just like all other Neos fusions, well, it's our first Neos fusion we're looking at. So Neos fusions have a gimmick that they return to the extra deck during the end phase of the turn, during the end phase of each turn. However, unlike Gladiator Beasts, they do not retrieve their materials, and basically, for example, they don't resummon Neos or any Neo-spacian monster, which I would have expected to see as an effect here, as a floating effect of the Neos fusion. So yeah. Then we have Marine Neos, which requires Marine Dolphin and Neos, and basically is an upgraded version of Aqua Neos, as in you can destroy any random card in your opponent's hand. Sorry, sneezing, bless me. But anyway, he does not have the effect which requires him to return to the extra deck, which actually makes him really good, but near impossible to summon due to the fact that you need to run Nex and Marine Dolphin. Basically, you need to waste one extra deck and one main deck slot in order to make this thing useful. So, no, it's really, really not worth it. So, yeah. Flare Neos gains 400 attack and for each spell and trap card on the field, making it just a big stupid beat stick with nothing else going for it, and it's basically a Flare Scarab fusion. Air Neos is also a card which you mostly build your decks around, since, like Rada said in his video, it's an effect that completely contradicts Hummingbird's effect. Well, since Hummingbird increases your life points, this thing does not focuses on you not having many life points. So, yeah, you basically use stuff like Soul Charge or anything other than that to reduce their life points to as low as possible, and then bring out this thing and go in for the OTK. Simple and easy. Grand Neos has a simple compulsory evacuation device effect, which is nothing too special. Glow Neos is, again, a much bigger beat stick. Is a much bigger beat stick than Glow Moss. The effect is relatively the same. Dark Neos is a card negation effect, basically a monster negation effect once per turn, which is tolerable, but he doesn't do anything else. He doesn't even copy the effects of the monster that this effect negates, which is really underwhelming, and it could have been a lot better. Then we have the triple fusions. Storm Neos, being the fusion of Neos, Air Hummingbird, and Aqua Dolphin, has a once per turn heavy storm effect, and during the end phase when it gets shuffled into the extra deck, a Rainbow Dragon effect. So yeah, this is actually the gimmick of Neos triple fusions. When they're returned to the extra deck by their own effect, they usually do one final goodbye and one final effect in order to be remembered by. However, this is actually not a really good effect, because yeah, you can get rid of the opponent's board, but you are also getting rid of your own cards, and as we all know, Neo-spacians and Neos don't really have ways in generating tribute fodder and any other more splashable and consistent ways of putting Neos out on the field. So yeah, it's a bit of a costly effect to consider using. Then we have Magma Neos, which is again a really stupid big beat stick like Flare Neos, but he gains 400 attack for each card this turn. And if it is shuffled into the extra deck, you can return all cards on the field to the hand. The effect here is actually a bit worse than Storm Neos' effect. While Storm Neos actually shuffles them into the deck in order to prevent the opponent from easily getting access to them again during the next turn, just simply setting them all back onto the field. This one just returns them to the hands, and yeah, it's basically all it does. And it's basically only used as a beat stick and nothing else. There's pretty much nothing else going on for this thing. Then we have Chaos Neos, which is a gamble card in Neos, which is the last thing like they need. So yeah, you usually don't run this despite the sick-ass artwork. Then we have some of their newer support cards for another triple fusion called Nebula Neos, which requires Grand Mole and Dark Panther as material. And due to the fact that it's actually a relatively new card, it's pretty good. It basically has the status of being the best triple fusion, while Air Neos is the best regular fusion. In quotes, the Neos fusion, which requires Neo-spacian, as the other material. That's what I meant to say as the two-piece fusion. And yeah, it's first of all, you can draw cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, which is actually really lovely, since if you're bringing this thing out as turbo as possible. And you can negate the effects of one face-up card on the field until the end of this turn. And because of this thing, you can actually negate this thing's own effect in order to make it not able to leave the field and shuffle itself into the extra deck during the end phase if you don't have the field spell and their field spell out on the field. And but if you choose to let it go, if you shuffle this into the extra deck, you can banish all cards on the field face down, which is, I gotta be honest, a really powerful effect, no question about it. Banishing face down is one of the most powerful effects because retrieving banished cards which are banished face down is a lot harder to do than you might think. Only a select few cards in the game can actually fetch back cards that are banished face down, one of which is actually Cypherem Lord Omega, so yeah. And then we have Elemental Hero Cosmo Neos, the semi-boss monster of the archetype, and which requires an Elemental Hero Neos and 3 Neo-spacian monsters with different attributes as material, and it's a level 11 for some reason. I don't know. And as its actual effect stands, I still think Nebula Neos is a lot better. Really, it really is a lot better. You can basically it has the Armade's shutdown until the end of the turn, and you can and this effect cannot be negated. I mean, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation, meaning yeah, it cannot be negated. And if it is shuffled into the extra deck, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Yeah, even the shuffle effect is outclassed by Nebula Neos. Yeah, it's a really bombastic card. Don't get me wrong, and it's the hardest monster to summon this way. But I still think Nebula Neos is the best in that opinion, since it actually requires Neos along with two of the best Neo-spacians in the entire game, which are Dark Panther and Grand Mole. So yeah, and then we have Elemental Hero Divine Neos, which really disappointed me when it actually got imported into the real game. A lot of his effects from the anime actually have been nerfed. In the anime, he gained, I believe, 300 or 400 attack for each fusion material that he used as material. Then the copy effect was there, I know, and yeah, its original summoning condition was a bit harder than in the anime. Well, in the anime, it required Neos along with all other Neo-spacians, all 6 of them, while here it requires 5 Neos, Neo-space, Neo-spacian or hero monsters as material, including 1 Neos or Neo-space or Neo-spacian monster and a hero monster. And it also cannot be summoned by other ways. And yeah, all it does, it can actually copy some of the most underwhelming effects in the game one at a time, and also until the end phase, which the only decent targets I can actually imagine this thing being copied are some of the masked heroes and, I don't know, Destiny Hero Plasma or Destiny Hero Dominance, because yeah, good luck bringing this thing out if you actually manage to get those into the graveyard already. So yeah, really disappointing, because yeah, this is already the second end boss protagonist monster which has been severely nerfed. Well, Horakti, I do not consider her to be nerfed, since she was summoned during the Dawn of the Duel arc, where she wasn't a de facto monster, she was just a deity, so to speak. Well, Horakti is an OCG exclusive that has a gimmicky OTK, gimmicky FTK playstyle behind it. This is usually something you summon, like a very last resort option, where using stuff like Miracle Fusion in order, even even when you don't have the most appropriate monsters in your graveyard in order to use its copy effect. So yeah, basically make sure this thing has a decent effect to copy, or else it will cost you the game. And then came 5Ds and Quasar Dragon, the third protagonist and boss monster, which really showed how protagonist and boss monsters should be treated and should be made. And then in Zexal, the Zexal end boss monster was Utopic Future, which doesn't really feel like an end boss monster, but alright. And then in Arc 5 there were the three end boss monsters, which were the Odd Eyes Venom Dragon, Odd Eyes Wing Dragon, and Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon even being introduced way earlier than an average protagonist and boss monster. So yeah, and then in Vrains there was Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, which is also another very competent protagonist and boss monster, which could easily stand up to Quasar. Basically his equal, his brother. Do you know the way? Anyway, yeah, I've rambled long enough. We still have 3 fusion monsters we need to take a look at here in the Neos department. First of which is Brave Neos, which requires a elemental hero Neos as material in any level 4 or lower effect monster. And engage a 100 attack for each Neo-spacian and hero monster in your graveyard, and when it destroys a monster of a battle, you can add a spell trap from your deck to your hand that specifically lists an elemental hero Neos in its text, which is a perfectly fine search effect, and you basically run this because it's basically one of your better first turn options. So yeah. And speaking of other things to run other than these and other than Divine Neos and the vanilla Neo-spacians, we also have elemental hero Neos Knight, which requires an elemental hero Neos and a warrior type monster. It can attack twice during each battle phase, gains half the attack of the warrior monster used as its fusion material, and for the cost of the opponent not being able to take any battle damage from battles involving this card. This card, unlike Brave Neos as well, is also summonable by Miracle Fusion, which is a really nice touch, and despite the fact that the Neos also has its own miracle card, so to speak. And the last fusion monster, and it sure looks the part, is the ever so grand Rainbow Neos, which requires Rainbow Elemental Hero Neos and an Ultimate Gem God monster, meaning any Rainbow Dragon monster. So yeah, it's basically a more stable and versatile Rainbow Dragon. At the price of sending a monster to the graveyard, you can spin all monsters to the deck the opponent controls. By sending the top card of your deck to the graveyard, you can spin the entire graveyard, and for sending a spell or trap, you can spin the entire back row. And I just need to say this was made during 2007, when the standard for boss monsters was stuff like, I don't know, Blade Edge, or I don't know, really anything as underwhelming as Blade Edge. So yeah, it really shows that Rainbow consumes all, and it really is. It shows how Rainbow Neos is a very, very powerful card. It's a shame that it can't search out Rainbow Dragon as fusion. It's a shame that Rainbow Dragon cannot be searched out by fusion conscription. This thing is also summonable by regular polymerization. And yeah, however, you're probably not going to be using regular polymerization on this thing because of the existence of Neos Fusion. This thing is literally a one-card Rainbow Neos. Activate this, boom, Rainbow Neos right on the first turn. However, that comes at a price of being able to summon only fusion monsters for the rest of this turn. But who cares? You have rainbows and colors. The colors feel so right. So you're probably not going to be bothering summoning any other stuff like this. You can only also use this in order to summon 2-piece Neos fusions, so no triple fusions with this thing, which is kind of a shame due to the fact how great Nebula Neos is. But yeah, you most likely use this as a one-card Rainbow Neos, and that's it. Then we have the field spell, which gives training wheels to the archetype, that being Neo-space. This grants Neos and all the fusion monsters, the Neos fusions, a 500 attack point boost, and it prevents their effects from activating, which force them to return to the extra deck during the end phase. So yeah, basically basically a prime example of a field spell basically needing to be in play in order for the deck to function properly. And in order to help with that fact, we have Neo-Space Pathfinder, which is a standard field spell searcher, but this one only works for this one also works for fetching a Neo-Space from the graveyard as well, which is actually kind of lovely. So yeah, you basically run 3 of these in Neos variants. Then we have Miracle Contact, which is basically a miracle fusion for the Neos fusion. And I'm gonna say this right now, and I know I'm repeating Rada when I say this. Always run 3 and never any less, because it's just that you absolutely need to run 3 of these in order to make anything with this deck. So yeah. Then we have Cross Porter, which is kind of out of place, really, which acts as very bad and mediocre Neo-spacian support, and is basically a foolish burial reinforcements of the army for searching out your Neo-spacians, and that's about as far as it goes. And we have Neo-Space Connector, which is pretty dumb, but all in the right way, because it's a 1-card Isolde on 2 Tales of the Noble Knights, which are actually very welcome in the in Elemental Heroes, since they're all warrior monsters. And yeah, it also can summon any Neo-spacian monster from along with an Elemental Hero Neos. So this is basically a card which you absolutely max out on and never think about running any less. And the last monster is Elemental Hero Honest Neos, which is, well, an archetypal honest. What else can I say? It's kind of not needed, because heroes have such a vast and wide amount of attack manipulation cards that it just makes this thing basically makes this thing running this thing rubbing it into the opponent's face that you can actually OTK for game. It's actually really fun to use this in conjunction with Air Hummingbird, I mean Air Neos. So yeah, in my opinion, just run by preference, or I actually somewhat prefer the original Honest over this one. So yeah. Convert Contact is a very nice card, which you basically run 3 of in your Neo-Space builds, because it's one of the least restrictive Pot of Greed effects in the game. Space Gifts is something that I would actually call alright, but it requires a bit too much setup to work. Common Soul is actually some very flimsy training wheels for the archetype. Contact Gate is a very bricky card to consider running. Contact Out is an archetypal diffusion. Instant Neo-Space is an equip spell, which is a replacement for the original Neo-Space, but it actually gives better buffs than Neo-Space, since it basically, if the Neos fusion dies, you get to recycle Neos from basically anywhere where it is. Wrath of Neos allows you to return Neos to the deck in order to destroy all cards on the field, which basically is not that good, considering you're getting rid of a monster which is very hard to get, which is very hard to summon and bring out, and the opponent will have the first chance to recover if you basically get rid of your primary playmaker for it. Reverse of Neos is a bit too specific for my taste, so don't run it. Neos Force is a gimmicky OTK enabling card. Double Hero Attack is again a very gimmicky revival card for other elemental heroes and other hero monsters in general. Next is something yeah, it's a very fun name. I have no idea what does it stand for, but it's actually an alright Swarm card, but it's actually far from a staple, since it's a bit slower due to it being a trap card. So yeah. And now lastly we have something that you would have never guessed that exists if you haven't watched the season 4, that being Neos Wiseman, which is actually Question why they actually made it into a main deck monster while it was in the fusion monster in the anime. What did they think that it was too strong to make it to a fusion monster? If it was a fusion monster right now, you could have actually it could have been summonable by Neos fusion. So yeah, the way it is right now, it's barely worth consider running, and I say barely because it actually received a retrain, that being Neo Elemental Hero Neos Kluger, which requires Neos and Yubel as materials, and it basically incentivizes you to run the original Neos Wiseman since it can actually summon him quite easily, and building a deck revolving around these two can actually be sort of fun. So yeah, it's actually it's actually a very it's very fun. What else can I say? I'm getting tongue trapped, so I should probably end it off here. The next lineup are Vision Heroes, stopping at 11 cards, and I've actually read these effects of Vision Heroes for the first time, since this is the branch I have least experience with, other than Extra Heroes, which are also a newly integrated branch. And these actually focus on an artifact type of playstyle that rely on them being and special summoning themselves from the spell and trap zone, which I thought I'd never see in anything hero related, but here we are, I guess. So, meaning that I can actually skim over the most of the monster lineup of the main deck pretty quickly, since all of them have the effect where if you take battle or effect damage while it is while a monster is in the graveyard, you can place it in the spell and trap zone and treat it as a continuous trap card. And yeah, you can tribute a hero monster in order to special summon all of them, which have set effects, and all monsters of course have effects of varying quality, of which only Increase, Vion, and Ferris are viable. And yeah, Ferris and Vion aren't even the traditional form of Vision Heroes when it comes to their effects. Ferris can be a very nice free material in the deck, since he can discard a hero monster in order to special summon himself to the field. And yeah, that's about all it does. Vion is also a nice Poly Searcher and Gravito, which I skimmed over. It can occasionally be a very nice searcher, provided that you really love these Vision Heroes, because yeah, they feel very shoved into the archetype forcefully, I mean. So yeah, they also have their fusion card, Vision Fusion, which can be used to summon any hero monster by using monsters on your hand or from your hand or field as fusion materials, and you can also use 2 monsters from your spell and trap zone that are being treated as continuous trap cards as fusion material by banishing them, which is fine and all, kind of playing into the theme of Vision Heroes, but the problem relies in the fact that Destiny and Elemental Heroes and Neos have their specific materials for their fusion summons, and they can't use Vision Heroes mostly as material with this. And the other part of the problem is that Vision Heroes only have 2 fusion monsters in their own branch. First of which is Vision Hero Adoration, which requires 2 hero monsters, and it has a pretty run-of-the-mill mediocre attack manipulation effect, which is tolerable on a monster with attack as high as him, but overall pretty much nothing impressive. But then we have Vision Hero Trinity, which requires 3 hero monsters, and after this card is fusion summoned for the rest of this turn, this card has its attack doubled, and it can make a second attack and a third attack during each battle phase, but it cannot attack directly. So yeah, this is actually a pretty damn spicy comeback option when you have, if you happen to have enough materials in your graveyard for a miracle fusion, since you can banish any 3 hero monsters in order to re-summon this, and then go in for the overkill. But it's a real shame that this thing cannot attack directly, which is, yeah, understandable to an extent, since 5,000 attack to the face is a really strong number. Definitely worth running. And the last Vision Hero card is Operation, which is just like the Hero Signal and Destiny Signal, only it's a bit better due to the fact that it also triggers off of effect destruction, and it can halve the original attack and defense of one monster your opponent controls, which is sure to bring much difference and advantage in your fight, because, yeah, awesome, really. And those were Vision Heroes. Next in the line we have Extra Heroes, which are just 4 Link monsters from the Link Reigns pack of the support. We start off with the Link 2 Extra Hero Wonder Driver, which is, in my opinion, actually the best extra hero due to the fact that it can also search out change quick play spells, meaning it can give masked heroes a huge boost. Also, it's a Link 2 with 1900 attack, which is a very, very strong value for a Link 2 monster, so yeah, great card and definitely a 3-off staple in the deck. Then we have Cross Crusader, which is also a really good card, providing you actually play Destiny heroes, because most of his effects really rely on Destiny heroes being used and splashed into the deck. So yeah, it also has really alright arrows. So yeah, you can you can make the best out of it in a Destiny hero deck. Then we have extra hero Helldivisor, which I thought it was very broken at first until I took a second to realize it, because you can reveal any hero fusion monster in your extra deck and add up to two of the fusion materials with different names from your deck to your hand, whose names are specifically listed on that monster. Emphasis on that, because it only means you'll be able to search out all the crap elemental heroes and all the vanilla monsters with this thing. So the best use of this thing is basically in a Neos build, where you can actually search out Neos and the appropriate Neo-spacian, and then use Miracle Contact in order to bring out said Neo-spacian, said fusion monster. So yeah, that's about as far as we go with Helldivisor. And Dread Decimator is about as pointless as you can get, and it basically is a terrible card, despite being a 2500 attacker, Link 3 with great arrows. And those were extra heroes, and now we move on to the final branch of this archetype analysis. Those being the best kinds of heroes, masked heroes. And yes, they revolve around a certain set of cards called change quick play spells. And let's take a look at them, shall we? Mask Change is a quick play spell which allows you to target a hero monster you control, send it to the graveyard. Also, after that, if it left the field by this effect, special summon a masked hero monster from your extra deck with the same attribute that the sent monster had when it was on the field, its original attribute if face down. So yeah, it basically allows you to switch out some of your hero monsters for more powerful masked hero monsters in order to continue with the beatdown. It's basically it's a different type of a fusion spell card. Basically, an exchange card which allows you to exchange one big powerful beater for another. The fact that it's a quick play, like I already said, means if you actually attacked into something with a very powerful monster, you can use max change on said monster to summon another monster, meaning you get another bonus attack. So, great card, really. Then we have Mask Change 2, the second generation of Mask Change. And it allows you to discard one card to target a face-up monster you control. It has a level, send it to the graveyard. Also after that, if it left the field by this effect, special summon from your extra deck one masked hero monster with the same attribute, but a higher level than the attribute level monster had it also on the field. Its original level attribute level if face down. The special summon is treated as a special summon with mask change, and you can only activate one mask change 2 per turn. It's a different flavor of mask change if you happen to have If you don't happen to have the attribute that you want with the original mask change, you can always rely on this uh, in order to bring out your masked hero. It's a shame that you can only activate one of these per turn. I don't know why that was placed there, but I guess someone thought it could be a gateway to some massive abusing going on with some of the better masked heroes. So I guess it was alright. And we have the last change, so the quick play, that being form change. It allows you to target a hero fusion monster you control and return it to the extra deck. Then special summon from your extra deck one masked hero monster with the same level as that was monster's original level but with a different name. Special summon is treated with mask change. So yeah, it is also a it's Gladiator Beast next generation sort of effect, as it allows you to switch out with extra deck monsters instead of just main deck and extra deck monsters. Back and forth exchanging. So yeah, it's all basically, all three of these are basically worth running due to the fact that masked heroes, like I said, are the best kind of heroes in the game, and with just activating one of these per turn, one of each I mean, you can basically destroy your opponent on turn 1. Simple and easy, provided you know what to summon and when to summon and and what to summon it with. So yeah, and the last spell card, then we move on to the ever so beautiful monsters of this archetype, is Mask Charge. It allows you to target a hero monster and a change quick play spell in your card in your graveyard and add them to your hand. Simple recovery and recycling, and it basically is a 3-off staple in basically any hero build. Moving on to the actual monsters, first of which we have the level 6 monster lineup. Masked Hero Vapor is a water monster, and of course all of them have the effect that they must be special summoned with mask change and cannot be special summoned by other ways, and Vapor cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is alright. You most likely summon this as a 2400 attack beatstick, which if you attacked with something that is unable to be destroyed by card that negated all the that had an Armada shutdown type of effect. For example, I'm only hypothesizing. Then you bring out this, and then the opponent tries to destroy it, and then oh, you can't be destroyed. So yeah. Then we have the wind one, Masked Hero Blast, and if it is special summoned, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes half its current attack, and once per turn during either player's turn, you can pay 500 life points and target a spell or trap your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, but it can certainly help out in an emergency. Being able to halve the opponent's monster's attack can certainly edge you closer to victory due to the fact how masked heroes are supposed to be played and how their effects interact with other stuff on the field. So yeah, the bounce effect is entirely pointless. You're most likely never going to be using it, so it's most likely ran as a beatstick and a quick destroyer of monsters. Then we have Masked Hero Goka, a fire version, and it gains 100 attack for each hero monster in your graveyard, which again, if you're summoning this as turbo as possible, on a good day it might have around 2500 attack tops, and that's pretty much it. However, if you actually wait a bit later, it can actually turn into a pretty potent attacker and pretty versatile beatstick, so so it's definitely worth running in that spectrum. But now we have for the last level 6, we have the absolute legendary Masked Hero Dark Law. It must be special summoned by mask change, and any card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. Once per turn, if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, except during the draw phase or the damage step, you can banish one random card from your opponent's hand. Okay, other than Rainbow Neos, I have absolutely no shame in saying this, and as I imagine no other Yu-Gi-Oh players have any shame in saying this. This is the best hero fusion monster, bar none. This is usually the masked hero you tend to summon the very last in your chain of summonings with mask change, and it really shows. It's basically meant for a more control-centric build of masked heroes, as in it isn't really focused on quickly destroying your opponent's life points by attacking into stuff over and over and over again by quickly changing masks over and over again. So yeah, it's basically an opponent-only macrocosmos, and if your opponent happens to add a card from their deck to the hand, if you can't afford to use Ash Blossom, although Ash Blossom is still recommended in Masked Hero Darklaw builds, you can banish one random card, emphasis on random because from your opponent's hand. Emphasis on random because that's one of the worst kinds of effects how you want to what you want to deal with when when you're under under this sort of pressure. So yeah, Darklaw is an absolute beast of a monster, and some of you, I have received comments in the top 10 best fusion monsters video, why the hell hasn't he been in the top spot? Well, I did say in the very start of the video, but obviously some of you weren't listening or were too lazy to listen. I clearly said that I wouldn't include monsters which do not have listed fusion materials, which Darklaw actually falls under that category, so no. But yeah, if we were to eliminate that factor and criteria, Darklaw would definitely be the best fusion monster right next to Rainbow Neos. Or no, Rainbow Neos was actually on the second spot, so yeah. Basically Darklaw would be the #1 spot in that video. Then we have the level 8 lineup, first of which is Masked Hero Dion. It has the standard summoning condition, and when this guy destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon a level 4 or lower hero monster from your deck. And this one is also an essential playmaker and basically the main bullet of the beatdown focused masked hero playstyle, because upon destroying something by battle, which masked heroes tend to do all the freaking time, you can summon another level 4 or lower hero monster such as Shadow Mist or Prisma or anything else that you can basically abuse or use mask change on in order to summon another masked hero, and in order for make him to beat even harder. Not to mention the said low level monster can attack directly if you happen to clear the field beforehand, or it can attack regardless if your opponent has a low monster with a low enough an attack in order to get rid of it. Then we have Masked Hero Divine Wind. Standard summoning condition, cannot be destroyed by battle, and when your opponent can attack with only one monster during each battle phase. And when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can draw one card. Plussing is always nice, and it's genuinely what you want to do mostly in heroes in general, and not only masked heroes. And it also is what is called Dark Door, the Dark Door on legs. So yeah, also it has alright stats for a level 8 monster, so everything seems to be really good. Then we have Masked Hero Anki. Standard summoning condition, and this card can attack directly, but when it does so using this effect, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent is halved, and when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can add one change quick play spell from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect on Masked Hero Anki once per turn. Dion and Anki are usually the two cards which you tend to summon out first, because Anki searches out more change quick play spells, and Dion summons more monsters which can use said change quick play spells. So yeah, this thing can also attack directly if your opponent happens to have a monster which is a bit too difficult to run over. So that's always a nice plus in my book. Then we have Masked Hero Acid, standard summoning condition, and when this card is special summon, you can destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls, and if you do, all monsters they control lose 300 attack. Well, it's not the best among the group, but it can certainly hurt the opponent significantly if he is actually relying on back row so much that that Acid can do such damage to him and decrease the opposition's attack values for a very significant amount. So yeah, not a very hard staple, but certainly worth running. And the last masked hero, in quotes, is Masked Hero Koga. Standard summoning condition, and this card gains 500 attack for each monster your opponent controls. Once per turn during either player's turn, you can banish a hero monster from your graveyard and target one face-up monster on the field. That target loses attack equal to the attack of the monster banished to activate this effect until the end of this turn. It's also a very nice card to consider running, since you're most likely going to banish masked heroes which you used previously to summon other masked heroes. So the opponent's monster will be losing 2000 plus attack, which is always a nice attack value to lose for an opponent's monster, that is. So yeah, one of the main problems this card had in its early days is that people didn't usually have proper light monsters to use in order to bring this thing out. So yeah, they even ran Neo-spacian in order to bring this thing out. However, you usually run Elemental Hero Prisma as your primary target in order to go into Koga. So yeah, and the final masked hero in quotes card is Contrast Hero Chaos. I was actually meant to. I sort of wanted to include him in the separate lineup, but he's the only contrast hero in existence, and its summoning requirements are 2 masked hero monsters. So I didn't. I included him under masked heroes. Anyway, it must be fusion summoned. It cannot be special summoned by other ways, and it can be summoned by standard fusion means, so no mask change. And while face up on the field, this also is treated as a light monster. Yeah, that's no big deal, honestly. And once per turn during either player's turn, you can target a face-up card on the field, negate that target's effects until the end of this turn. And yeah, this is one of those monsters which you usually run as a comeback option as a miracle fusion enabler, because you tend to banish 2 masked heroes monsters with a miracle fusion in order to bring this thing out, and it basically is an archetypal Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. So yeah, it's has pretty tolerable stats for no, it actually has great stats for a level 8 monster. Or is he a level 9? I'm not. Yeah, he's a level 9 actually. So yeah. And that was it for every branch, but there are still some support cards, a grand total of 6 support cards, sorry, which actually works on every branch of heroes. So let's take a look at them and get this archetype analysis done and over with. Legacy of the Hero allows you to return 2 fusion monsters from your graveyard to the extra deck that lists a hero monster as material, then draw 3 cards, and you can only activate 1 of these per turn. It's a defined comeback option, and you usually don't run 3 of these because its draw effect is usually a bit too specific. Favorite hero is an equip spell, which is fine, nothing too spectacular, because it requires field spells in order to function properly, and as we all know, archetypal field spells aren't usually the best one to go around. The only field spell that should ever matter in hero builds is Fusion Recycling Plant. So yeah, you can actually perform some funny shenanigans with this one. It's usually meant to help out with the Shining Flare Wingman OTK, and that's probably what this artwork is alluding to, even though it plays the original Flame Wingman. So yeah. Generation Next is the card that I would usually say, oh, you can just do none of that and just run Monster Reborn. How handy! But it's a quick play spell, so there are uses for this thing, but why does it have to lock you out of said effects? The only point of reviving monsters is to use said effects that they offer upon them being revived, so this card goes against the very logic of this archetype, and I'm not buying it, and I'm not gonna run it ever at all. Then we have a Hero Emerges, which is theoretically not a hero card, but it has hero in the name, so yeah. And it's basically meant for monster mash decks, and yeah, heroes are not are far from a pure monster mash deck, so it's really not worth considering. Magistry Alchemist is also another very gimmicky attack boosting card, which also which has a very steep cost, mind you. You might as well be if you're able to perform a cost such as steep such as this one, you might as well want to summon a fusion monster, which will get you better results than this thing. And finally, we have the most, I don't know what the hell this is even. This is Get Your Game On. Quick play spell, no, continuous spell, what am I saying? Which you can only play if you were present at the 2007 Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game World Championship. And it basically doubles the attack of all Elemental Hero and Neo-spacian monsters on the field. So, yeah, this is an illegal card, as you can probably see, and I cannot decide if it is illegal because the first ruling can be very hard to check, or because this is a gimmick not worth talking about any further. So, might as well wrap it up here. We are finally done with heroes. Oh my god, this took forever. Yeah, it took way less than the Performapal video, but still, it took a lot out of me to record this. Let's just wrap this up with the grading scale. In terms of consistency, they're all warrior monsters of varying levels and attributes, so they have some very nice consistency, and the fact that they're all warriors means they have access to Rhoda. Destiny heroes have some nichely nice draw power as well, and some of the other cards actually synergize very well with each other. You can special summon more of them from the decks. So yeah, the Hero Lives is also a thing, so I should be giving up 3 out of 3 there. Power exists only if you're playing a Masked Hero variant or the Shining Flare Wingman OTK. Other than that, it's basically your run-of-the-mill toolbox deck, which basically summon the correct monster to deal with the various other problems that the opponent's board might be presenting. So yeah, power output usually depends on the type of build you usually choose to run, and not every breed of hero can be mashed together. So yeah, the only true consistent power output is Rainbow Neos, which is usually ran in turbo decks that can make it, or basically any deck which his fusion materials might benefit in. So yeah, the potential is certainly there, but not enough for me to give him a 3 out of 3, so I'll give him a 2 out of 3 instead. Comeback ability usually depends on top decking Neos Fusion or Miracle Fusion, and that's about all there is to it. And as for Masked Heroes, they can spawn a bit of an easier comeback time, but usually it's a bit too specific to work, so I'm going to give them a 1 out of 3 there. In terms of protection, there are very sparse traces of protection, but most of them are rendered irrelevant, since this is mostly swarming and beatdown focused deck, which most likely uses Masked Heroes, like I said, because they're the best bunch of heroes, in order to finish the opponent off on turn 1, or basically really damage him to the point that he might as well surrender after he gets his first turn, because there's literally nothing he can do. So yeah, in terms of protection, he gets a 1 out of 3. And versatility, it's pretty much obvious that they get a 3 out of 3 due to the fact how many variants and sub-archetype this whole family of cards has in total, and how many different deck styles can you build out of these things. It's truly, new decks are basically being spawned for this bunch of cards every day, and yeah, it's definitely a very large archetype with lots of varying playstyles. So yeah, and that is it, my ladies and gentlemen. I finally done it, the largest archetype ever that I reviewed. I'm sorry that it wasn't the standard archetype analysis. I really couldn't. The video would be over 8 hours long if I did it like that. The video right now is bound to be very long. I just need to check how long is it, because I took in between breaks in order to get this video recorded. So yeah, it's certainly going to be I'm not sure how well this video is going to be received. I think it's probably going to be a very well received video. I was pretty accurate about everything which I said, so yeah. And yeah, this is it for the archetype analysis for a very good while. And yeah, I just gotta think of what to do next the when the chance arises. I've actually constructed 6 top 10 lists of top 10 duels from each Yu-Gi-Oh series, Duel Monsters, GX, 5Ds, Zexal, Arc 5, and Reigns. And then at the end of the Reigns top 10 list, I'll actually read out the top 10 duels of all time, of all 6 combined. So yeah, stay tuned until then. I don't know when that video will come. In 2 weeks I'll be on my Christmas break, so yeah, I think I'll probably upload those videos then. See, alright, but as for now, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more vids, walkthroughs, and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all, have a good day, and peace.